Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of Guitar Talk. We hope to teach you a little something about guitars and amps and different styles of playing and performing. Today's episode should be a lot of fun. We're calling this one All Amped Up, and we're going to show you some fine examples of vintage Fender amplifiers. Fender has designed good guitar tone pretty much since we had the ability to even plug in a guitar. And those early tweed and black-faced amps, as they refer to, are the most sought-after amplifiers in the world. Jim Marshall copied the Bassman, and the blackface has defined what clean guitar should sound like since the early days. And companies like Mesa got their start copying Fender. They had a souped-up Princeton Reverb. And that's what got them going into that whole boutique amplifier world that is now considered to be a pretty decent market share of amplifier sales. But there's really a couple of true tones in the world, and you're going to hear those today in the amps that we have. And I'm very, very honored to welcome back today's guest, Neil Vitullo. Hi, Neil.
Mike.
From Neil and the Vipers, and you can see them every month here in Taunton at the Sandbar Grill. What do you guys do, the first week or the second week?
Usually the second Thursday.
Second Thursday of every month, and you can, of course, visit Neil on his website, which is
NeilAndTheVipers.com.
if you'd like to find out their schedule and where you can hear him play. And we both chase tone, we both love amps, and we collect them like rabid dogs. We're just chasing them all the time. We love them. And Neil has brought two extraordinary clean examples today. We have a tweed, that's a Tremolux, Neil?
Tremolux, 1956 Tremolux.
Wow.
Completely original.
It looks like a modern reissue. It's so clean. It's the cleanest one I've ever seen. And what do we got next to that?
We have a 68 drip edge, transitional from blackface to silverface, and so that was the first year of that.
So that still essentially has the blackface circuit.
Exactly the same, exactly the same. There's no difference at all in that circuit.
And the early silverface one, folks, especially the smaller combos, the Princeton and the Deluxe, they didn't go through radical changes as quickly as the twin reverbs did, so they retain that early sound through those early silverface years. So if you ever come across a clean drip edge Deluxe or Princeton, grab them, because it's pretty much the exact same circuit. And again, that one's so clean it could pass off as a modern day reissue. And in the middle over here we have my 1966 Super Reverb, and that's the first amp that really ever made me jump up and down as a teenager. I heard some local musicians using them back when I was growing up, and I'd never heard anything like that in my entire life. And, from then till now, like Neil, we've used a lot of different amplifiers. I've tried the modern boutique amplifiers, all the more complicated circuitries and things like that. But I always come back to something like this. It's the simplicity and the pureness of the tone is really unmatched still today. And next to that, we have a 1966 Deluxe Reverb, and that may be the most recorded amplifier in history. That and the Princetons in all the studios throughout the world, and especially through the 60s and 70s, those classic eras, those are the amps people were using to record with. So today you're going to get to hear a little something out of each one of those, and we're going to play a little bit for you. But like myself, Neil, I know you've owned a lot of different amps and other brands and companies. What is it that brings you back to those every time?
Well, everything that I own is a Fender in some way. I still use the Victorias. I think they're one of the greatest amps made.
Those are tremendous.
Guy does a great job, reverse engineered everything. But it's still a Fender. First amp I ever got, 1976, 77.
Yep.
My mom gave me for Christmas a Deluxe Reverb.
Wow, that's a great Christmas present.
And that was it. From then on,
Yeah.
and that's the tone that I identify with. I made a living with a Super Reverb as my main amplifier
Yep.
for 25 plus years.
I know the first time I ever saw your band at the old Last Call Saloon in Providence, you were using a Super Reverb back then, and that was in the early or mid '80s, I think, somewhere around there. But you know, and I know all the guys you've worked with, all the blues greats, you know, Chris Brown, and everybody at one time has had Supers as their main working amp. Tommy Ferraro,
Yes.
Duke, he's used them for years. But, you know, as we get older, we hate carrying them around. And I think that's why people gravitate to the smaller ones. But once you plug it in and hit that switch, you're glad you lugged it in the building because it's quite a sound.
Nothing compares to that amp. Oh, yeah. Just the way the 10-inch speakers react with the 6L6s, tubes, it's amazing.
And that amp, the Super, has the mid-range control. There's a middle control that the other Blackface amps don't have. They put a bright cap in the other amps, and I think it's tuned at about the halfway point, mid-range, or slightly
Yeah,
spooked.
like if you set it at 7 or 8, that's what the cap does for that.
Now, is your bright cap clipped on any of your Deluxes at home or on your Princeton, or do you keep them stock?
My Drip Edge Deluxe, I would bet it has been.
Yeah.
The other one, I have a 70s, just like the one my mom gave me.
Yep.
That is completely original.
Yeah.
No, it just stays the way it is. I'm not sure on the Princeton, to be honest with you. It just got that.
What is the output tube in the Princeton Reverb?
It's a 6V6, and it's putting out at about 12 watts, 14 watts. But you can gig with it. In fact, I gigged with one yesterday.
You know what amazes me is I've set up side by side, folks, a Princeton, a Deluxe, and a Vibrolux. And the volume differences aren't as big as you would think they would be.
No, they're not.
There are some differences, but you can easily gig with a Princeton Reverb amplifier in almost any room. Put it up on a chair, throw a mic in front of it if it's a big room. But these small Fender combos really get the job done.
Yeah, they really do. Like I said, I gigged with one yesterday. When you have one of those loud rooms, low ceilings,
Yeah.
or wooden, a lot of glass, that's you know, that's all you really need. And, you know, it depends on your drummer too, of course. You know.
And you got one that hits the kit pretty hard.
Well, yeah, for the Vipers, yeah.
Yeah.
But I still use it. I'll use a Deluxe a lot.
Yeah.
I use a Deluxe a lot. Tweed Deluxe style. I use, which is about 14 watts.
Yeah, that
15
does
watts,
it.
and it's really, and you can get at that breakup point. You know, back in the day, I mean, we used to get away with more with the Super Reverbs. I mean, because
Yeah.
a Fender, you really have to put it at about the halfway point
To get it to hit the sweet spot.
Yeah, where you want to. So when you dig in, it blooms.
Now, is the sweet spot in the Tweed amp at a lower volume, or do you still
Yo,
have to push it?
yes, absolutely. It
They
is.
break up a little earlier.
It's what's called negative feedback, and with the black faces, and then really into the silver, they were trying to get more clean.
Right.
You know, so they put a negative feedback circuit in there. With the Tweeds, you didn't have that. But in an example like that, like a Deluxe, you can play the volumes, they interact.
Yes.
So you can get it to clean up a little bit. But, you know, I mean, that's why Tweed and a Tele, the way there's nothing
The
like
ultimate
it.
sound,
It
yeah.
really is.
And that particular circuit has probably the greatest tremolo there is.
It's amazing.
The blackface circuits for the vibrato tremolo is different than the one that has, correct?
Yes, absolutely. The three different, we have like, I think 3 different styles of tremolo there.
Between those amps?
To all to get to the same thing, yes.
Yeah.
A Super Reverb will use an opti-coupler. I believe I probably said it wrong, but that's okay. But it's a light a flashing light.
Like a photo cell kind of
Yes,
thing.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what makes the vibrato work on that. The Tremolux, one side of a 12AX, and the power tubes is a bias, so it's a bias alternating one.
That really, you can hear the difference. Like the old, when I listened to those old Creedence Clearwater Revival songs, and you know, he was always pictured with custom amps on stage, those old tuck and roll things, but it's widely known that when he recorded those early songs, he was usually using a Tweed Fender with that circuit.
Yes, absolutely.
And you can hear it. That's, you know, a real thick and rich vibrato that no other amp can really match it.
Oh, it's amazing. Right, I've tried, you know, we've all used the pedals to try to get that sound. But
Yes.
no, doesn't work.
Yeah.
Close.
Nothing quite like the original.
Close.
Well, let's do something where they can hear that.
Okay.
So, folks, that's that gorgeous sounding, mint condition Tweed Tremolux that you hear Neil playing out of. And I was using the deluxe reverb on that particular one.
Sounds
now I'm going to
great.
switch over to the super reverb. Neil, you can play out of whatever you want.
Okay.
You can already hear there's a total difference in the tonality between the deluxe, which is a more beamy, focus kind of sound with a single 12-inch speaker, versus the 410s that move a little bit more air. It's a brighter amp too because of the 10-inch speakers, so you get to hear it in action. There you have it, folks. Listening now to the Super Reverb once again, and that was the Tweed Tremlux, and there's really no breakup sound out there that even comes close to that, but we're going to put the guitars up and sit down and chat a minute. We'll be right back with you. So is this the first example of a Tweed of that caliber that you've had, or have you been fortunate enough to have some other ones in years gone?
I've only had reissues. Victoria.
Right, right.
The last time I was on here, that's what I was using.
And they get pretty close.
It is extremely close.
I mean, the layperson would never know the difference. You know?
I don't. I mean, it's
Yeah.
he, especially his early examples.
He's making the best Tweeds probably in the country.
He is Dr.
And that's,
Tweed.
what's his name, Mark?
Mark Bayer.
Mark Bayer from Victoria Amps, tremendous builder. There's some good builders out there, that's for sure.
Him, Clark.
Yeah,
There's
Clark
quite a few.
Amplification.
Yep,
Yeah.
but his Mark's stuff is great. It really
Yes.
is. So this is the first one. I saw this and I anteed up for it, and I'm not sorry I did it. I've never had buyer's remorse one day on this one.
Well, you know, we've both been in and out of the vintage market for all our lives, and in the old days, folks, you could find a Super Reverb or a Deluxe Reverb for $200 or $300 all day long.
Oh yeah.
Now there's another zero on the end of that price. Now they're $2,000 or $3,000, and the Tweeds go quite a bit higher than that. What I've noticed is that all the blackface and drip age Fenders are close in price. Maybe the Princeton is bumped up a little higher in the last year or two because of its size and portability, and everybody's discovered once again how unbelievable they sound.
Yeah, one of the most recorded amps ever.
Absolutely. Larry Carlton
Yeah.
with a 335 and a Princeton. I mean, a lot of that Steely Dan stuff, a lot of guys just, you know, plugged into one of those and got the best sound you ever heard.
It's all you need. It's great reverb. The trem is awesome on them. What more do you need? Turn it up, go.
Now, we both like to tweak, and you've helped me a lot. So if we could share some of that knowledge, let's talk a little bit about some inexpensive mods some people you could do to take, say, a Princeton or let's say a Deluxe Reverb, for example.
Sure.
Let's talk a little bit about the tubes. Those make an amazing difference in what the amp's going to sound like.
Well, yeah, they do. You know, you're not going to buy, and you're not going to buy a Russian tube and think it's going to sound like an old American tube. Some of them are pretty close. The new tongue saws do sound pretty
They're
close.
nice.
But a good new old stock, 70-25.
70-25, folks, are the preamp tubes. Those are going to be in V1 and V2, and that's going to change your sound a lot.
Yeah, the day that I did it with you.
It was like someone took a blanket off the cover of the amp. I had a Vibrolux Reverb. I brought it to Neil's house. He said, watch this. He pulled out V2, put in a vintage RCA 70-25, and it was like somebody switched amplifiers. The difference is profound.
Absolutely. That's the two main things you can do for your amps is tubes. And it's usually that V2 in a dual channel or a V1 in the others, and the others are speakers.
Yes.
Relatively inexpensive. Back to tubes though, go with good NOS, new old stock tubes, RCAs or whatever you can afford.
Yeah. If you've got an amp you know you're going to keep,
they're going to last.
spend the money on the good tubes. They're going to last, and the sound is going to be unbelievable. Now, yourself and Ricky King Russell, who's been a guest on the show, also talked about pulling out V1 if you're not going to use that channel, and it gives you a tiny bit more earlier gain and breakup.
A little bit more, bring it down, bring the amp down a little bit.
On a Super Reverb, that might be a handy one because those are very loud amps.
It's a very handy one on Super Reverb.
Yeah.
Very rare do you use the first channel.
Right.
It's in a lot of ways it's almost unusable. A blackface without reverb, because the cabinets are built so tight,
Yeah.
they sound like crap. You need the reverb.
gotta have
There's
the
a
verb.
reason why they put the reverb on those amps.
That's right. That's right. And the speaker selections now are very good, is what's available out there. You introduced me to the Jupiter speakers. And those are
Fantastic.
not crazy money. They sound phenomenal. And they really bring this tone of those amps out, because changing the loudspeaker can change the personality of the amp quite a bit. So
Oh, God, yeah.
You really got to get the right speakers.
Yeah, and that's it. You know, it's a tone chase, and,
Yes.
and you have to do it for your own personal taste. If you want the traditional, the Jupiter speaker, great. They work great. WGS. I think they manufacture those for them. Phenomenal speaker. If you want more mid-range added in, you can go with the Celestians. There's nothing wrong with the Celestian.
Nope, those are good
Celestian Blue
speakers.
is one of the most fantastic guitar speakers
It's
ever
a wonderful
made.
speaker. The Jensen has a mid-range quality to it, though. It's vocal-like. It's almost like another instrument. They're so sweet, the old vintage ones. I find the new ones are very trebly.
Yes, they are very, very high end.
A lot of treble and bite. You really got to roll it way off. But those old ones, if you can find one that's in quality condition, you're going to pay for it. But the sound is so exceptional, it's unbelievable.
You just heard it in there.
That's the sound.
Yes, not
Absolutely.
piercing at all. Very, very warm sounding. Very warm sounding.
Absolutely.
I do like the new 10s, the reissue 10s that Jensen makes.
Yes.
And I use those in a couple of amps.
Yeah.
And in fact, I saw Jeff Beck was using those for the Vibro King.
Right.
He was using that with the Brian Wilson tour. Good enough for him, good enough for anybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because he always, no matter what he plugs into, he sounds like Jeff Beck, but he's a real fan of the Fender tone.
Yes.
And he knows how to bring it out, you know. There was a period of amps, we don't have one here today to show you folks, but the period of amps between the Tweed and the Blackface would be the brown ones.
The brown, yes. Yeah, that was a transitional,
No reverb.
no reverb. That it has the best, not vibrato, tremolo.
Yeah.
Going, almost like a vibe, a univibe in some
Right,
ways.
they're thick, you're very lush.
Yeah,
I found that they break up real early.
they do. It's a tweed circuit. It's really a
Right.
tweed circuit, and then they were experimenting with the tremolo.
Our friend Tom Williams, who plays guitar for Professor Harp, who is a guest here, has the only brown Vibrolux I've ever seen.
Really?
Yeah, no reverb.
No reverb.
It
just
had
that.
very little
Yeah.
breakup, but it had so much bloom and swell. It was a very complex sound, and I was like, wow, this thing's unbelievable. Then I found out it was Mark Knopfler's amp of choice for some time as well.
Really?
Yeah. So the brown ones, it's like a whole nother study. You know, you find the ones that are known for the heavy-duty breakup. Ted Nugent used a brown one. And I mean, that's hard rock, you know, city there, nice crunchy
Is that what he was
distortion.
recording on?
Birdland into a brown deluxe. Scream and Mimi distortion.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. And I know where there's two of them here in the New England area. There's a shop in Mansfield. He's got a couple.
Don't tell me.
And I plugged in and I was like, oh boy, this is really a classic rock and roll sound. Me, I prefer something in this range because I do want to get beautiful, clean tones. And I find that these provide that a little better. With any guitar I plug into them, I can get a clean sound, whether it's a Strat or a Tully or a Les Paul. But as you can see, folks, we've also got some fine Telecasters here on the stage today. Neil, tell us what you got over there.
Oh, it's my main guitar, the 53 Butterscotch Custom Shop, and the 62 Silver Sparkle, Blue Sparkle.
Which is the first cousin of the Red Sparkle.
Yes.
Over here, I just put a different pickguard on it, but they're essentially the exact same spec and build. And then a little off camera there, we have a Sunburst Nashville B-Bender Telecaster. And that has a metal plate in the back that allows you to push the neck down and bend the B string. And I did do that a couple times while we were playing. And what are your upcoming performances?
Where are we? Let me see. Well, the closest one here to Taunton will be
The Sandbar.
The Sandbar, the second Thursday.
Yeah, that's coming right up around the corner. You really want to see that. The Vipers are such a tight smoking band, folks. It's really something to see. And
very
we've got
fortunate.
blues of that quality every week in Taunton at the Sandbar. We've got Neil, Tommy Ferraro's coming in. Duke Robillard's been in. Ricky King Russell, all the greats. Professor Harp, the Love Dogs, Diane Blue. So you can see all of that, and you can hear these kind of amps and watch guys playing this traditional music with the right equipment. So come out and check out some live music while you still can, because it's getting harder to find bands that play this kind of stuff with the authenticity and conviction that guys like this do. So thank you, Neil, for joining us today.
My pleasure. Always fun to sit
Thanks
and
for
geek
sharing
out
your
with
gear
you.
and your knowledge. And folks, tune in again to Guitar Talk. I'm Mike Higgins. It's been wonderful to be with you today. We'll see you soon. God bless you.